Matt Riddle is set to face Timothy Thatcher on tonight's episode of NXT. Not just in a steel cage, not just in a submission match, but also with a Kurt Angle doing the special guest refereeing. Just when I thought he was out. But according to PW Insider, there's an even bigger stipulation behind the scenes, as once it's over, Matt Riddle will be called up to the main roster, with the Bro possibly making his debut as early as this Friday's episode of SmackDown. But why SmackDown over Raw? Dave Meltzer has pointed out on Wrestling Observer Radio the move is an odd one, as Raw's executive director Paul Heyman has been very high on Riddle for a while, and the two are actually friends. Apparently, SmackDown producer Bruce Pritchard specifically requested Riddle, as well as AJ Styles, who was drafted to the Blue brand last week in a non-cross invitational, not wildcard permanent trade for future consideration, not confusing at all move, as Friday nights have found themselves without their biggest star Roman Reigns, who has refused to work tapings during the pandemic. But there might be another reason behind Riddle's move to SmackDown. Brock Lesnar! Riddle has technically already debuted on the main roster in January's Royal Rumble match, where he came out as lucky number 23 to last just 41 seconds before being eliminated by King Corbin. There is nothing wrong with lasting 41 seconds. That's actually a really long time for some people. This was far from what was expected, as Triple H had teased in interviews that Riddle would feature much more prominently, and us all expecting a Riddle versus Lesnar showdown, given their shared UFC past and how Riddle has repeatedly promised to one day retire Brock, which, surprisingly, Lesnar legit doesn't like. According to TalkSport, Brock approached Riddle backstage just hours before the Rumble match and said, "Kid, you might as well stop saying my name and tagging me and shit, because you and I will never work together ever." While Lesnar hasn't been around since WrestleMania, he still very much is on the main roster. It's speculated that drafting Riddle to SmackDown is a way to keep them away from each other and not displease the Beast. Now, before we get on with the rest of the news, I'd like to say a big thank you to this episode's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. VPN. I don't know about you, but I've completed Netflix. I'm up to date with Amazon Prime. My lady partner won't let me rewatch the X-Men 90s cartoon series in full for the 9th time in a row. But I like it when they go to space. Enter Surfshark VPN, an app or web extension that lets you place your phone, laptop, or tablet anywhere in the world, giving you access to their previously geo-blocked content libraries. With Surfshark, if you're in the UK, you can now access the much better Netflix US library. Or if you're in the US, with Surfshark, you can watch the UK-only BBC iPlayer. Or if you're me, you can rewatch the X-Men 90s cartoon series in full for the 9th time in a row. But this time, Disney Plus thinks I'm doing it from the US. Loophole in your face, lady partner. Get yourself Surfshark VPN using our special links below to access an entire world of content, and make sure to use our promo code WrestleTalk, because that gives you a massive 83% off and a whole month free. Surfshark are really helping support us here at WrestleTalk, so please at least click the link below and check them out. I might use my Surfshark VPN to see into alternate history dimensions, like if WCW still existed. Which might actually happen, as a new trademark filing suggests WWE is bringing back WCW in some form. Incredible work, Surfshark VPN! Because all the most exciting wrestling news happens in copyright courts, PW Insider has noticed WWE filing for a new trademark on the initials WCW for such tantalizing business ventures as cardboard packaging, collector albums for sticker collectibles, and temporary tattoo transfers, which pretty much means merchandise. The wrestling world has found itself increasingly nostalgic for WCW over the last several years, with WWE using the Starrcade name for an annual live event in the Carolinas, NXT adapting their brilliant War Games stipulation for Survivor Series weekend takeovers, and AEW AEW just being a thing. Perhaps a WCW one-off special in WWE could be a way to temporarily turn around the ratings freefall. How do you want to see WWE use their WCW trademarks? Let me know in the comments below, because I'll be replying to people from out of my 258-mile drive to Durham. Geez, I hope my eyesight will hold up, saying the correct answer is bringing back the Shockmaster. But while McMahon could do something with WCW, he's denied he won't be doing anything more with the XFL. Again. For a third time. McMahon relaunched the XFL in February, just a month before Steve Corino started really getting the heat on the world. The league shut down midway through their inaugural season as a result and filed for bankruptcy a month later, leaving the business venture with significant debt, despite McMahon reportedly investing nowhere near the $300 million he had promised his partners. Last week, however, The Athletic alleged the bankruptcy could be McMahon's way of shutting down the business now to rebuy it on the cheap and start again in 2021 with a clean slate, i.e. no debt. Name of United's indie rock band, no debt. Vince has now denied this in court though, according to ESPN's Kevin Safit. "I'm not going to be a bidder," McMahon said in a deposition. The filing called the claims inflammatory rhetoric and unsubstantiated accusations. McMahon also claimed to have put in at least $200 million into the XFL, but while McMahon might say he's not interested, plenty of others apparently are, with a separate filing revealing there are 20 potential bidders for the XFL, all of whom are probably Cody Rhodes, so he can play swapsies with Vince for WCW. Steve Corino, of course, hasn't just caused the closure of the XFL, it's also affected McMahon's primary business, with WWE being unable to run shows in front of fans. WrestleVotes is reporting WWE are now preparing to restart their live event schedule, potentially from July, with the promotion trying to work out how to hold shows with social distancing guidelines still in place. And not having fans in attendance has massively changed WWE's plans for the long-running Sasha Banks versus Bayley feud. Banks was first meant to have a match against her best friend forever, Bayley, at WrestleMania, but WWE pushed that back when they realized it was too soon. WrestleTalk.com's Louis Dangoor can exclusively report, "We do exclusives now, don't you know?" that the new blow-off date was meant to be at this August SummerSlam, which would have taken place in Sasha's hometown of Boston. WWE decided this would have generated the best crowd reaction for Banks, who was going to turn babyface in the feud. Wait a second, babyface in her hometown? Run, Sasha, run! It would also be the 5-year anniversary of Bayley beating Banks for the NXT Women's Championship at TakeOver Brooklyn in August 2015, one of the best matches in the history of the company. Unfortunately, the match might be pushed back again though, as the Boston mayor has banned all large gatherings until Labor Day in September. WWE are expected to either delay SummerSlam to Septemberfest, still in Boston, or find another city to host the pay-per-view with fans in attendance, meaning Sasha wouldn't have her hometown pop. Our sources have said Banks vs. Bayley isn't completely off the table for SummerSlam, but the company is considering other options for the SmackDown Women's Championship for the show. Thanks for your support on Patreon, Ryan B. Bad. WWE underwent another day of batch tapings yesterday, including next week's episodes of Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live and Main Event, even though 205 Live and Main Event are non-essential even outside a pandemic. But the Raw tapings didn't go as smoothly as hoped. Sean Ross Sapp is reporting on Fightful Select that about an hour into filming next Monday's Raw, Kairi Sane suffered a cut on her head when Nia Jax threw her into the corner of the steel steps. Hey, that's Seth's move! The match had to be paused as medical personnel attended to Sane. Thankfully, Kairi said she was fine and reportedly insisted on finishing the match, where they resumed the action and pretty quickly went to the finish. This has also been backed picked up by Dave Meltzer, who tweeted a similar story confirming that Kairi thankfully showed no signs of serious damage, a concern given her concussion at December's TLC show. Unfortunately, this is far from the first time Nia has been responsible for injuring people inside a ring, infamously breaking Becky Lynch's face ahead of Survivor Series 2018, as well as injuring Kairi again in April with a reckless buckle bomb. She's also injured Ember Moon, Bayley, Charlotte Flair, and others in the last few years. Escaping the wrath of Nia Jax's squash matches on Raw, because you better believe that's what NXT talent would have been used for if they weren't let go in April, recently released WWE wrestler Deonna Purrazzo showed up in last night's episode of Impact Wrestling as their latest knockout, as fired NXT talent only had a 30-day non-compete clause instead of the main roster's usual 90. And speaking of knockouts, sexy Mike Tyson segue. The baddest man on the planet, Mike Tyson, helped Cody win the inaugural TNT Championship at Double or Nothing on Saturday. But Tyson handing Cody the championship wasn't the only thing they shared, as Cody has revealed in an interview on The Rich Eisen Show.
I haven't told anyone this, but I shared a nice moment with Mike behind the scenes where he used a little of my baby oil to put on his chest and his arms, and I helped him rub it in. It was actually pretty surreal, but I wanted him to look as jacked as possible. So he asked for the baby oil. Because he just, I think he saw the other wrestlers are typically putting on a little baby oil or water, wrestling tradition.
Yes.
And I made sure he had it. But before we went out, he just kind of sprayed it. It was a little spray bottle of it. He just sprayed it on his chest and his arms.
We can't have that. You can't have that. You can't have that.
Yeah, no, you gotta give it to classic Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, before even Nature Boy Ric Flair, where you rub that stuff in, and I was able to assist in that moment, a real bond over that moment.
A Let Go WWE star's return has been leaked. Press the video on the right to find out more, and press the video below that to watch mine and Luke's review of this week's Raw, where Rey Mysterio definitely isn't retiring. Press the button in the middle to become a pledge hammer on Patreon, much like these people scrolling below me, and make WrestleTalk.com your homepage for the latest wrestling news. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was wrestling.